Welcome to the I Spy with My Myo podcast. I am your host, Brittany Sierra. I am a certified oral-facial myologist, registered dental hygienist, and lifelong learner. My goal with this podcast is to expand your knowledge of oral-facial myofunctional disorders and to bring you up-to-date and current literature so that together we can get to the root of the problem. You ask, we'll answer by collaborating with true pioneers and specialties associated with the myo world. Join me on this journey as we dive into the life-altering world of tethered oral tissues and airway space. Let's do this thing. Quick disclaimer, all content expressed on this podcast are the views and opinions of the speakers and is for informational purposes only. You should not rely on this information as a substitute for, nor does it replace, professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Because every person is so unique, you should always consult with your specialized healthcare professional. Dr. Mary Bourke is a chiropractor with a special interest area in pediatric growth and development. Mary has a unique and experiential perspective on children's health. The daughter of pioneering Australian dentist Dr. Kevin Bourke, she grew up surrounded by his passion for human health and learning about the intricacies of oral facial growth, breathing, and the origins of human nutrition. This led her firmly down the path of health, becoming a chiropractor, going on to establish a natural health center in Newcastle with her husband Ian. As a mother, Mary developed a strong personal and professional interest in the impact of modern-day dietary and weaning practices and their effect on cranial growth, neurology, and the function of the stomatognathtic system. One of her key professional goals with both chiropractic care and as the CEO of Myo Australia, manufacturers of the Myo Munchee, is to spread the word about the benefits of chewing and the denaturing effects of long-term pacifier use. All right, welcome, Dr. Bourke. Thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. I'm so happy to have you on here.
It's a pleasure to be with you today, Brittany.
Oh, thank you. So I'm so excited to have you on here to, talk about the Myo Munchee and everything behind it and how it started and, everything that patients can benefit from using it. So let's just kind of get into the whole story behind the Myo Munchee and how it became.
Okay, well, it's a great story because it's about my father, and I'm always happy to tell it. He was basically, how it came about was 1960s. He was fishing with a friend on a little island off the coast of New South Wales, near where I live, and he discovered the jawbone of a First Nations Australian. And that jawbone was really dense and the teeth were firmly rooted into the bone and the teeth were worn down. And it really got him thinking because he was working as a dentist in a rural setting in Australia and there was a lot of very poor oral health. And so he looked at that and thought, wow, this is so different to what he found with this jawbone. And it got him really thinking about chewing. And he also was very interested in the work of Weston A. Price. And he also was another dentist who was looking at the oral health of some of the more the cultures out into those sort of more primitive cultures, and seeing that they had really, really good oral health. And once they came into those more westernized environments, they were becoming less stable and strong. So that got Dad thinking, okay, chewing. So he developed what we now know as the munchie. But back then, he and a few of his other dental friends got talking and they came up with this idea of a chewable mouth guard. And then that was kind of what he started to try and design. And the little prongs that are on the munchie, as we know it today, were for massaging the gums. And that's what was originally for periodontal condition and oral health. And it's really still very, very good for that. So that's what it was originally invented for over 50 years ago. Yeah, that's
awesome.
The original munchie, red rubber munchies they were.
Oh my gosh, I did not know the whole, I use the Myo Munchies in my practice and I knew, your father had created it, but I didn't know the whole story behind it with, him being on the fishing boat and everything. That is such a cool story, how it all, came about. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So let's talk a little bit more about the product we know today as the Munchee or the Myo Munchee, and exactly how it works.
Yeah, so it's still super relevant from that oral health perspective, which is what Dad invented it for the saliva production and keeping the oral area clean. The saliva is how the oral area is kept clean. And those of you who work in oral health, as you do, you're a dental hygienist, and a lot of the people who work in this field are dental by background. So the Munchee is a super useful tool in so many aspects of dental health. So it's a really great oral health tool. Over the years, Dad developed a children's ones as well, because he could see that that was really useful and really good for, we've got before and after photos and studies and things that were done on the benefits of chewing the Munchee for cleaning the teeth. So the chewing of the Munchee is as effective as a toothbrush. If you chew it for 3 minutes in the 3 to 6 years age group, it will clean the lingual surfaces of the teeth even more effectively than a toothbrush. So it's a great tool for that oral health perspective. So these studies were done way back in the 1970s in Japan at Osaka Dental University. And what they found when they were looking at those studies of the children who'd been chewing the Munchee, they started to see that the jaw posture was starting to change. Some of those kids with malocclusions, cross bites and open bites, were starting to shift the way the jaws were coming together, and the lip competence was starting to improve. So that's when they really started to see that, oh wow, there's all these other benefits too. So there's lots of added benefits to a child chewing for 3 to 5 minutes twice a day. Profound benefits: oral health, oral tone and function, as well as the swallow mechanisms and all the other things that we're really wanting to get established to set a child's facial growth up well.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit more about why chewing is so important for craniofacial development, and how, our society today really doesn't chew enough. Yeah. And the negative impact that that's had on our occlusion and our airways and all of that.
Well, it's really interesting because it's the brain that's programming the facial growth function, the whole postural development. So from the body posture to the oral posture. So what's happening is that children are now staying on foods that don't require any effort. Now, this has probably happened over the last 50 to 60 years, really. So it's not just this generation. It's just become more extreme now. It's been happening for quite a while, that all our food's quite processed and nothing really requires much effort. And we're now at the point where children are having those suck down packages, and parents are on the go. They're on the go, they're going fast, and they're zooming here and there. And food is now a thing you just get in, and we've lost the mechanics of the benefits of the mechanisms of chewing to get the food in. And that's there's been some amazing research and study done into so many aspects of this. I don't know if you've read the paper by Lecha Pasquet, Oral Health, that was published in Oral Health 2016.
Yes, yeah.
That's an amazing paper. So maybe list that up here for your people if they haven't read that, because that gives all the research that's done into the huge benefits of chewing across all gamuts of age. But specifically with children, the sucking mechanism is the very first part of oral development, and then it should go into the chewing mechanisms. And the chewing mechanism is how the mandible particularly grows. So it's that brain information coordinating that muscular activity around the lower jaw that's really growing that whole lower jaw area, and all the muscles and the throat and the airway. All of that is so involved. So when they're not chewing, we end up with these children with the recessed jaw that's there from early on, as we're seeing these days, and it just never gets established to grow. That's what we're seeing a lot, yeah.
And then let's talk about, so, I love the Myo Munchee, using it in my practice because I feel, it works on everything all at once. So what are the main goals, would you say, for, well, I guess like we can kind of break it down, even though the main goals are probably the same for everybody, but, with children, like I love the fact that when they're in it, they're not only working on, chewing and getting those masseter muscles going, but it's working on lip function, and they're working on nasal breathing because the lips are to stay closed. Can you talk about how how it's actually used, like what the children, I mean, I'm going to link the videos for people to look up, you know, the tutorials for the Myo Munchee and everything. But if you want to explain like what the process is using the Myo Munchee, because some listeners might not even know even what the Myo Munchee is yet.
Okay, yes, all right. So with a child, and most of your listeners working in the myofunctional space, Brittany?
So my listeners are a little bit of everybody. So it's for healthcare professionals, you know, myofunctional therapists, dentists, SLPs, really anybody, parents. So some people, yeah, so it's a little bit of everybody.
All right, great, that's good. Yeah, so the munchee is basically shaped like a mouth guard, but it's flexible, and it's made of flexible silicone, and it has these little prongs on it that massage the gums and provide what we call proprioceptive information, which is positional information to from the oral area. Now, what's interesting is that lower third of the face has a third of the brain information on motor planning and sensory feedback coming to it. So there's a lot of brain information that should be happening there, because it's a super important part of the whole development, isn't it? It's where speech is occurring, breathing is occurring, sucking, swallowing, eating. It's all of that super foundational function of the human is going on in that lower third of the face. So it's a really important area to keep well fired up neurologically with the brain. And the munchee is a great way to do that. So basically when the munchee goes in, shaped like a mouth guard, lips come together around it, which means you have to nose breathe. When you've got a munchee in your mouth, you cannot breathe through your mouth. You have to breathe through your nose. And that's what we're looking for in life, is nose breathing. So that helps to tone the lips. The action of chewing creates saliva production. And when you create the saliva production, you've got to work out how to swallow it. That's the other great advantage of having a munchee in your mouth. You can't tongue thrust forward. You have to use the back part of the tongue and the correct swallow muscles to do it. So it's a great way for these children to reinforce all of those patterns we want them to be doing. The nose breathing, the correct swallow pattern, and then the lips together and the strength of the jaws as they're chewing. So chewing for, we're working towards 5 minutes twice a day. If you're older and you've got more of an issue you're trying to correct, you would need to do it longer. You'd need to do it more like 10 minutes twice a day, or in conjunction with your provider you're working with. But for children, for general facial development, orofacial exerciser, keeping that area just stimulated and growing well, 3 to 5 minutes twice a day is fantastic, and will be a really powerful way to get them getting that whole area working really well.
Now, what age groups can use the product?
The munchies, anywhere from around 2 years of age up to 95 to 100. My father, who was the inventor, used his munchee up till when he died, and he was 91 and a half when he died.
Oh, that's
so
amazing.
And he used it a lot at that age for keeping the tone and function of those correct swallow muscles. He used to use it keep that airway open. If he found he wasn't sleeping well, he'd pop it in at night, and it helped to keep his airway open. And he just chewed, and he loved to show how well his teeth were still rooted into the bone at 91, and he'd grown so he loved to show that it was fantastic for the aged care people as well.
That's so awesome. So where can our listeners find the product? Do you want to talk a little bit about the website, the Myo Munchee website?
Yeah. So the munchee, something that was really important to Dad, even though he was a dentist who invented it, he didn't want it to be a dental-only product, because he knew that he was working with speech pathologists. He was really interested. I'm a chiropractor, and he's really interested in chiropractors being able to utilize this with their patients. It's a great way for us who aren't dental or oral specialists to be able to positively influence the oral area, and also for even parents who can see that there's a problem with their young child, to be able to get a munchee and get them chewing. So it's an online business. It's Myo Munchee, www.myomunchee.com. And what we've tried to do is put a lot of really good information on there for the public. We want the public to understand these issues. And what we really want them to do is to see when their child's got an issue and find the practitioner in their community that can support them to get the best outcome. Because we know that for a lot of these issues, they need someone to guide them to get the best outcome. But we want the parents to get educated themselves and understand that there's a problem. When their child's got their mouth open and they're drooling and dribbling and they're 3, and they've got a speech issue or they're not sleeping well, that there's a big issue there, and they can really get some amazing help in that age group. So that's a lot of what we're about, is trying to get the message out to the public. And our product is something they can start with, but we know that it's a much bigger issue than that, and we're really trying to feed the public out to the practitioners to get the support they need.
That's wonderful. And the website is so informative. I always, I'm sending the link to my patient parents and everything. So it's a great website. Everybody should go check it out. Let's talk a little bit more about how, how the importance of chewing and jaw development, how that relates to airway and children that are experiencing sleep breathing disorders.
Yeah, okay. So what they're finding with a lot of this airway is that it's the jaws are what's supporting and giving space to that airway. So the jaws are such an important area for this. So the soft tissues are what's causing a lot of the issue. So traditionally it would have been the ENT, the tonsils or the adenoids and things. But what we're finding is the space isn't developed properly because the bony growth has never occurred properly. So I'm even seeing children in my practice with a lot of sinus issues, and I get them chewing the munchee, and it stimulates the sinuses as well to drain. So we can really see that the action of chewing was this profoundly simple, really important movement for the humans, and we've lost it because what it was doing was stimulating all the bony growth, stimulating the strength and the tone of the muscles, and also all those cranial bones that should be moving. So I work in a lot of cranial function in my chiropractic. That's what I do. I'm what's called an SOT chiropractor, sacro-occipital technique. We work a lot with cranial function. There's all these bones up here that should move, and the facial bones particularly, all that sinus area that gets congested, the ears that get congested. If we can get this action of chewing, it really helps the body to self-correct rather than this stagnation that occurs. And that's what we're finding with all that lymph tissue. It's that stagnation of the tonsils and the adenoids, as well as the small space, because it hasn't, the bone will grow in accordance to the stresses placed upon it. So if you don't stress a bone, it won't grow as much as it would. So the tennis player has a much more developed bony structure on that arm they use all the time, and the muscles as well. So the same will happen with the bones of the mandible particularly, but also the other areas of the face and even the spine. So, and body. I work, as I say, as a chiropractor, so I'm really interested in the body postural development. And I know that if a child's not moving, if they're not doing their milestones early on, and they're not getting up and moving once they can walk, it's not like you go, oh, okay, I can walk now, I'm not going to anymore. You don't then go, right, I'm going to sit down. We all know that if we sit all day, every day, we're not going to function well. Well, that's the same with the jaws. And this is unfortunately what's happened though, and this is what the message we're trying to get to parents is, once they can chew, they need to keep chewing. Right. And we've all got to keep chewing our whole lives, but we've got to make sure they do get straight onto it when they can. And it's pretty much ready from about 6 months. They should be having that action of gnawing on things and getting that sensation. And they seek it, don't they? Babies are always seeking to put things in and really stimulate their chew reflexes. They want to get it happening.
Now, especially as a chiropractor, you see the whole body connection and how, our jaw development, our craniofacial development, our tongue posture, how that affects our overall body posture. So can you talk a little bit more about that and the whole body connection?
The whole body connection, yes. It's a very big picture question.
I'm sorry.
I can break it down for you and start with babies and small children. We can start with that because there's a big body posture oral connection there. And I think this is really important for any of your practitioners in the dental field who are working in that early space. Because what I've seen happen, I've been a chiropractor for almost 30 years now, and over the last few years, what we're really seeing is babies spend a lot of time in those capsules. Mm-hmm. So when I had my children 20 years ago, they came home, we had one of those capsules for about 6 months. They might come home from hospital in it, and they were in it for a short period of time. Now, these children are in those for about 6 months, and they spend so much time in them. And what that does is it puts them into a curved position. So when a baby arrives in the world, it's in that fetal position, curled, and by 3 months of age, they should be fully open and they should be really stretching out. And what's happening with that time they're spending in those capsules, in the car, in the pram, in the wherever they're going many places, babies these days. They're staying in that curl posture, and how that relates to the tongue, that really limits the tongue and swallow function and the digestive. So instead of them opening right up and lengthening to the hyoid bone down into the diaphragm, they're compressed. So this is a big problem that I'm seeing with children, with babies with the tongue restriction. They then might go and get it released, but they're not really told about the massive importance of body movement and function to get the best outcome. So it's such an important piece of that. They might have a tongue restriction, but the whole body posture needs to be working in conjunction with that to get a full outcome. And that's something that I think is really important for us all to understand, because we're essential. We need that, and that's why the body workers, so to speak, are so essential with this. If their body posture isn't working well and strengthening and they get the tongue released, then it's not going to get the best outcome. Whereas if the body work is done and the baby's starting to get better postural movement, and then you release the tongue, you will get the best outcome, because the whole system knows how to work. It all works together. So that's sort of in that early space. And then, yes, it's really been eye-opening for me to learn more about the impacts of the tongue and the postural system. And so when I see people now, adults even with chronic TMJ issues, I'm looking at them going, oh, I know what set that up. Like that's a dysfunction, because they've had to adapt to this dysfunctional tongue and the whole posture. So a lot of these people are using their whole head and upper shoulder neck posture every time they swallow. So it does have profound impacts on the whole system. Yeah, it's all connected.
Absolutely. So you use the Myo Munchee a lot in your own practice then with a lot of your patients?
I use it, yes. I use it a lot with all the children I work with who have, the majority of children I work with who've got underdevelopment of jaws, who've had tongue release, different things done. I'll use it in conjunction with TMD patients to help stabilise, and grinders, bruxers, people who've got chronic headaches, things like that. We use it as a stabilisation tool to help assist change some of the habits. So we don't use it long term. It's a short term, up to sort of 6 weeks to use. And I also use it with things like, we have what we call a posture pole, like it's like a half Pilates roller, and get the patient to lie on that along their spine lengthwise, which puts the body into a more relaxed posture and allows parasympathetic stimulation, which is your rest, restore, digest. And then you pop the munchee in, and that allows the whole system to deactivate. If you can, then putting the munchee in allows your jaw to find a rest position. If you're a person who's chronically clenching or grinding, it's hard to know where that rest posture is anymore, as you guys who work in that myofunctional space will know. So the munchee is a great tool to help people have a rest posture until they learn that. And it gives the brain some biofeedback. So doing that for about 10 or 15 minutes is a really great thing to do. So they're lying on the posture pole, they put the munchee in, the whole system winds down, their nose breathing at the same time, which we know is calming itself and centering. So lots of good things, and the munchee being a great way to help the jaw posture, the posture pole helping the body posture, and then you get the nose breathing. So that's a really good little tool that anyone can do, and for patients to do at home.
Yeah, it's so amazing how such a small tool, because again, it literally looks like a little mouthpiece, can have such a powerful impact on, you know, everything. It literally is working the whole oral facial system. It's amazing. Okay. Is there anything that we have not discussed that you'd like to cover, or that you'd like the listeners to know about the Myo Munchee?
I guess I'll just touch on, because there are other products that look a little bit similar, like MyoBrace, or people say, occasionally we'll get questions about, or can I just use a mouth guard? Like, what's different? Why is it, you know? I think I just want to sort of say what the big difference with the munchee is those little prongs.
Okay.
And that's where I think a lot of the secret of its amazing ability lie, because each of those prongs, so in that, all of the teeth are these amazing neuroproprioceptive feedback units. So they're giving this amazing feedback to the brain about the position of those jaws all the time. So it's quite amazing we don't bite our lips and tongue all the time. That's because the brain's coordinating all this. What the munchee does, those little prongs are giving a whole lot of very subtle feedback to the brain. And I think it's the brain power of the munchee is what I think is what's different about it. Mm-hmm. So it has all those other benefits of the nose breathing, the correct swallow pattern, lip tone function, but it's the chewing action and those little prongs firing back to the brain that really creates that long-term profound change, and because all that information is coming through from the brain to that lower third of the face. So yeah, I think that's just to sort of understand that that's what the real difference with it is, and why. So it's not so say Myo brace, for example, is more of an ortho guidance sort of guide. It's more about teeth position and things. The munchee's different. It's kind of more of a neural muscular thing.
Now, is the munchee something that can be worn over orthodontics, or something that you would recommend, prior to?
The great thing about the munchee is it can be used in different ways. So, good question. It's a great way to get the system activated. So for anyone who's going to undertake some ortho work or something, this is a great way to power the system up, get the brain really aware of it. So when you do put any of that ortho work in there, that it starts to shift and the brain's already onto it, and it speeds it up. So basically activating the system for 8 weeks before with a munchee, using OMT exercises and things gets everything ready. So that's a really great way to use the munchee. A lot of people, not a lot of people, but a number of dentists are using the munchee in conjunction with, say, Invisalign, and using that really well with the Invisalign to stimulate the soft tissue, the cranial areas. And that's the other thing about that. If you're going to create forces that are going to pull the teeth, they're going to affect the cranial function. So it is really important that you are stimulating those cranial bones to make sure the system's adapting. Otherwise, that's where I see a lot of patients with chronic head pain and things who've had dental work done, and so the dental stuff's fitting, but everything else is compromised in its function. So it's a great way to help the system adapt. With more traditional braces and brackets and things, sometimes you can only use the munchee passively, but that's still helpful because sometimes the little prongs can move the brackets and it's all a bit cumbersome to fit it in there, but it can be done, and it depend on the provider to sort of be able to guide with that, really.
I love the munchee, because you just talked about using it passively. Like, I think it works so well for lip competence to really work on strengthening up those lips. So there are, times that, I'll have the patient use it actively where they're chewing with it. And then times where I'll tell them to, read a book and keep it in. Maybe you don't have to pay so much attention to the chewing part of it, but keep those lips sealed, keep it in there. And so yeah. I love the product. I think it's great. The whole idea behind it. It just makes so much sense. And again, I love that story about your father and how it was all created. I think that's just amazing.
Yeah, cool. Right.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Bourke, for coming on. It's been wonderful to have you on here, and I will leave some notes for the listeners. We will link the website so everybody can go check out the Myo Munchee and its uses and the wonderful tutorial videos that you have on there. And thank you again so much for being on here. It's been wonderful.
It's been a pleasure to be with you. It's morning my time, but afternoon your time, I believe.
Yeah, I again apologize for messing up the time yesterday. I'm like, when I got your email, I was like, oh no, it's already the next day for her.
It is hard to imagine. I know it's kind of weird, but yes, we're Thursday, so
we finally got this. So awesome. Well, you stay safe, stay healthy, and enjoy the rest of your day and my night.
You, Brittany. Okay.
All right, Dr. Bourke, take care. Thank you for listening to today's episode of I Spy with my Myo Eye. If you want to hear more about these episodes, leave a review on Apple Podcasts or feel free to contact me at bsierra.omt@gmail.com. Don't forget to subscribe as well and let us know of any subject or guest speaker you'd like to hear from. Help spread the word by sharing today's episode on your social media page. You can find me on Facebook at CT Oral Facial Myology and Instagram handle CT_oral facial_myology. Everybody have a wonderful day.